Are you ready to lead with impact? Well, friend, you're in the right place. Today, you can join Carol Fairman and Dr. Guy Henry as they begin exploring what it means to lead with impact. So, pull up a chair, grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and get ready to have some deep conversations with Carol and Guy as they walk you through what it means to lead with impact. Welcome back to Lead with Impact. I'm Carol Fairman, and this is Dr. Guy Henry, and we are
Hello.
here to talk about servant leadership, the heart of an impactful leadership. And so we know that as we approach Thanksgiving, it is that season of gratitude, which has inspired us to take on this subject. And so we want to take that Thanksgiving gratitude just a step further. How do we turn that gratitude into serving others? And so today we're going to unpack that by pointing out about four keys. We're going to look at the characteristic of a servant leader and the role of gratitude. We're going to talk about what it looks like during a holiday season. We're going to kind of talk about some biblical examples of that. And so those are the three big things that we're going to talk about as we dive into this. Just being more impactful as a leader through leadership, servant leadership, if you will.
Hmm.
And where does that come from, right? That bubbles up out of walking in that spirit and intentionality of gratitude. So, all right, Dr. Guy, do you happen to have a personal story about any leader that has demonstrated that?
Oh, I love how you pop these questions. I was gonna say I have my Thanksgiving sweater on because we're in Oklahoma and it's chilly.
It is silly.
Yeah. Actually, when I think about, of course, as most people know, we have a ministry in Honduras and we love to serve the
Right.
people, the remote areas. But I have a staff member who, and I won't mention his name just because. But when there is an opportunity to, he's head of logistics, we'll say that. But
Okay.
when there's an opportunity to set up and prepare for the logistics of a construction of the single mothers' homes that we do in Honduras,
Right.
because this is going to be the future of this single mom.
Right.
And for me, that is total servant leadership. Like
Right.
he's going to be going that way, but this opportunity comes, and so we're going to pivot because this now takes priority to be able to serve. So I really appreciate that kind of a servant leadership heart, and I'm grateful for that as well.
Right, right. And so it's through that gratitude, right? We're serving others, we're watching that, we're
Hmm.
pouring that example into others so they can rise up and become servant leaders themselves. And so it's so powerful, really, when we begin to look at it. I think we really need to kind of describe what a servant leader is, right? And
Okay.
that's
Uh huh.
it's that focus of serving others, which your example is perfect to that. And it's helping
Hmm.
them grow, it helps them thrive. And so those characters really include humility and empathy,
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
ability to be a good listener, and that selflessness. And then, more
Hmm.
importantly, is that deeper focus of that person's well being, right, over
Hmm.
ourselves. Right. And so it's so powerful when we really step back and see that that servant leadership is so critical, and it builds on what we were talking about last time about how we're cultivating a cornerstone of gratitude. And out of
Hmm.
that, right, is birthed that beautiful servant leadership quality, because you can't do it alone, right? We can't. We
Right.
can't lead.
Right. Absolutely. And that's an important to keep note of. Let me preface that what I'm about to
Yes,
say with, remember, leader is not necessarily a person with a title. A leader is
right.
a person with influence who is influencing, or
That's
better
exactly
yet, to say the person who is using their influence for the well-being of others. That's good leadership.
right.
When we use whatever influence we have at whatever position we have, even if it's not a title, but when it's for the well-being, the benefit of other people,
Mhm.
that is leadership. And connecting that with the season of gratitude, gratitude will then, as we serve and we influence others and motivate others, will promote humility in the
Mm.
sense that we have
Yes.
to recognize no matter who we are, as you mentioned, nobody succeeds alone.
Right.
It always, and even if you're I like to use the example of a golfer. We just see the golfer out on the course, but that's
Right.
not all there is to it. There's a team behind him. And so just
Exactly.
appreciating the contributions that everyone else gives to the team will help build trust.
Yes.
And when we, as we talked last time, when we're sincere about it, I think it creates a culture of mutual respect.
Oh, absolutely. And then you're reinforcing their belonging, right? And that
Yeah.
value that they actually have on that team. And so, did you guys do your homework? Did you guys write down and share with us some ways that you were able to show and express gratitude to your team? Because it really does bring success to the ministry, to the team, wherever you are really called to
Hmm.
serve, right? So those two things are going hand in hand. And as we think about the holiday season, what are you doing? I know I had some custom made shirts for my team as like a little Christmas gift. And so I was really excited to be able to do that. Um and it's from the heart. Now, a couple of years ago, my favorite gift for my staff, just to show them how much I love them, I I got wooden boxes. I sanded each one down. I did 12. I sanded them down, I stained them, and then I personalized them with some stickers that reflected who they are, who I see them to be in the Lord. Because one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that we do in our staff meetings is we come around the table and we pray for one another, right? What is that doing? That really cultivates a beautiful community.
Right.
And so when
Yeah.
we gather as a staff, we're writing down two prayer requests, one for us personally and one in our professional role. And each time we gathered, we'd swap cards and we'd be responsible to pray and pour into that person. And I thought, how cool would it be for us to have a special box to put them in? So I made those. And so
Okay. Yeah.
so there's some levels to that, right? I gave of
Yeah.
my time, right, to do something. I had to pray really hard over them because, I'm not really crafty. And so there might have been a few unsavory words in the process, but I had to, when you
Yeah.
pray over them, you get there. You do the hard to express that love and gratitude for your team. And so, what does that promote? A team culture. It makes them feel
Right.
valued, right? And
Yeah.
then it also shows that you're praying for them, you're treasuring that opportunity to pray for them. And
Mm.
so that incorporates that active listening and providing support. And so it was just really fun to be able to do that. And next week I'm taking them all out to lunch. Try to shake it up.
Uh,
I don't want them to expect
uh,
the same thing. And so I'm going to take them
there you
out to
go.
lunch and
Yeah.
it'll be fun. So there's lots of ways you can express gratitude, whether you're physically doing something because you're gifted to, whether it's
Yeah.
acts of words or if it's being the listening friend. So I would love to
Hmm.
hear some ways you might celebrate with your team during Thanksgiving or Christmas holidays and things like that.
Most of us, we celebrate the season.
Right.
Now Christmas is coming up next. And
Yeah.
and that's great to be. It's a great time for family. It's a great time to be grateful. It's a great
Yes.
time for connecting. But
Right.
that's not always the case for everyone.
That's so true.
Some people really have a hard time
Yeah.
during the holiday season due to personal struggles, financial struggles, past traumas,
Mm.
especially if they relate to that season. And
Yeah.
so being aware of that, being a person that is aware and going that extra mile specifically for them, just to
Mm.
deposit some form
Oh,
of
yeah.
gratitude, in their lives. And that requires maybe some creativity
Yeah.
on our parts, because we don't want to do something maybe super traditional because that may be the very thing that kind of triggers
Right.
whatever that trauma is. But just being a blessing and not, you know, taking their thoughts away from that trauma. And
Right.
I like it's kind of traditional, I guess. And we do this in Honduras, and it's not like we can't do this anywhere, and we do.
Right.
But one of the highlights of my time in serving is together Christmas baskets for that person that might
Love,
not have someone.
love
We do
it.
it remotely in the mountains, obviously, for families that are marginalized because they might not otherwise even have a Christmas meal. But maybe if someone that you know within your team or that's within your organization that might not have family that will be spending time with them, creating that something for them so that maybe it's just a Christmas meal that they can have, but they don't have to do all the work because they probably won't do it for themselves.
True. I
And it's
love
just that recognition. To me, that's leadership and definitely with a servant's heart.
Absolutely. I love that you do that. And we do something similar here. So next week, my son in law is heading back to South Korea, which means he's going to spend
Damn.
Thanksgiving alone. Right. And that's sad. He's already spent Christmas alone and last Thanksgiving alone. And we certainly feel terrible that that's going to be the case. So he's been home. And so we decided we were having this huge family gathering and we invited family and friends, people that we know don't have a family to go to. Our son is still single, and ordinarily he might spend those holidays alone. He's driving in. We have a couple of friends that are empty nesters now. They don't know what to do because their kids are married and doing their own thing, and they're just kind of left in the wind. So we've invited all these people to come over for this
All
kind of
right.
celebration. And what does that do? I see you. I recognize
Hmm.
that you are in this situation. We want you to know that you are loved. And so we get to invite them in. So it doesn't always have to be, putting together wooden boxes. You can send a beautiful basket with a note. You can, and then there's a widow and she just blesses my heart. She lives too far away to come, but I call her on every single holiday. I call on her birthday. I call her on her
Hmm.
recently deceased husband's birthday because she's grieving
Okay.
that day and she
Yeah.
doesn't,
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
doesn't, so I want her to know that she is loved. And so it just makes such a difference when you recognize where people are, you are meeting them where they are, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
being the hands and feet of Jesus. And so there's so many
Hmm.
beautiful ways that we can contribute to the lives of other people, whether it's your team or a family member or a neighbor, whoever it is, pour into
Hmm.
them. Be the listener, be the person providing the support. But like you were saying, let's recognize that some people aren't excited to celebrate these holidays. And so what
Right.
can we do? What can we do to, make the difference and, love them with the love of Christ? It's
Well,
powerful.
well, we can use, right? If we think about it, Jesus gives us an example of servant leadership, right? Of
Oh,
course.
yes.
And
Lots of them.
especially, yeah, and especially when he himself says that he didn't come to be served, but to serve others.
Right.
And sometimes I think in probably a human response is when we get so busy or we get to such a position, if you will, of leadership, it becomes difficult because we expect people to serve us, if you will, because everybody's got all these responsibilities. But let's just turn the tables. Let's flip the switch. Let's be the one that serves. Even because Jesus, here's the leader of leaders, and he's serving, or a very
Right.
practical and humble way to serve was he washed his disciples' feet. Because if we
Yes.
know the story, that was practical, but also
Right.
very humbling. And
Yeah.
so, how can we flip the tables? Even in
Right.
our leadership and in our emphasis. And another story I was thinking of, Bible story, was while it wasn't Jesus himself, Jesus really emphasized the one leper, if you remember the 10 that were that he said
Yes.
go, but one came back because he was thankful. What
Right.
Jesus made a special effort to emphasize that. So I think that's
Yes.
an important key to recognize the importance of gratitude. And you know,
Right.
and even our own restoration. I believe we receive restoration in our own
Oh,
energy when we give
absolutely.
thanks and recognize what other people do.
Yes, it is so good for our souls. And so Philippians, I'm going to read it so I don't misspeak it because that would just be the
Okay.
worst. But when you were saying all those things, it just reminds me of Philippians 2, 3, and 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but to each of you the interest of others, right? It's that
Hmm.
shift in focus that you were talking about right there. And it's so empowering when leaders are doing that. We're being the example, right? We are doing
Hmm.
the do. And we are going to cultivate a community that takes gratitude so much further, just
Hmm.
so much further into serving and loving one another. And so it's just, this has just been a very powerful conversation today. And so,
I'd like to interject and just maybe
yes,
begin to challenge anyone who's watching this is
yes,
what can you do during this season to actively serve someone else? You
yes,
know, just offering support, maybe giving a little extra recognition. And here's one that might be a little bit more challenging for our task oriented people, just taking the time to simply listen, right?
yes.
That act of listening to someone else,
That's
and
right.
maybe we've already heard that story 5 times, but that action of listening can leave a
Mhm.
big impact on those that just need to kind
Absolutely.
of get it off their chest, as it were, because that's a way of serving. That's a way of leaders, of being a leader, and serving in such a way is just let that person go ahead and unload it, because maybe we don't need to solve their problem. They just
Yeah,
need to be able to get it off.
that's right.
And
Right.
sometimes as leaders, we want to get out there and solve the problem, but maybe
That's right.
they don't need the problem solved. They just need to be able to voice it out.
Right. They
And
want
we can
somebody
be
to
that.
carry it with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and we do. We get to carry it with them, and so I want, who can you actively reach out to this week, guys, that
mhm,
you can serve? Who can you reach out to? What can you do that is going to exemplify Christ in your life? What can you do this week? Whether
mhm,
it's making the phone call, sending the text, taking somebody out for, a cup of coffee or a walk in the park, or just a little note. That
mhm.
handwritten note we were talking about in our last episode.
Old
Those things
school, but still works, right?
Yes. Oh, people love them because so
Yeah.
often all we get is junk mail, right? So why not fill somebody's box up with love? And so we're giving thanks for you guys for tuning in. And
Yeah.
we are hoping that we were just able to share with you some powerful tips that you could take back, that you can put into action and really begin building a culture of gratitude, appreciation, thanksgiving,
Mhm.
all of those things, because we are called to give thanks in all circumstances, friends, for this is the
Yes.
will of God for you in Christ Jesus. And so,
Yes.
Guy, do you have any closing thoughts for us as we wrap up our gratitude series?
Sure. I just remember gratitude is more than a feeling.
Yes.
You know, it's not this I don't feel like it. We don't have to feel like it. It's an act of service. I believe it's not only a way of leading, but it's a way of living. I know we say that, but what about really applying that? Not Don't wait until you feel it, because when
Yeah.
we make it a lifestyle, I believe it brings us closer to God, but it'll bring us closer to others. And that connection that sometimes
So
can get
true.
so easily lost by misunderstanding. If someone feels appreciated, they're
Mm.
really apt to overlook that missed understanding.
So true. That's so
And
true.
so,
Those are great words to end on, Guy. And so, thank you for tuning in this week. And we will be back with you very soon.
All right. Bye, y'all.